today, this galaxy stands united. Not because we forced you to unite, but because you chose to embrace unity as a superior alternative to chaos. Some of you have asked when humanity will step down from its leadership role. The answer is simple. We already have. A murmur of confusion ran through the assembly. Look around you. This assembly is governed by principles we taught you, but it is run by your elected representatives. Your worlds are administered by your own governments, operating under laws you helped to write. Your fleets are commanded by your own officers, following strategies you helped to develop. Humanity's role has changed from rulers to advisors, and soon even that role will become unnecessary. But remember this. The galaxy you have inherited is not the one your ancestors lived in. It is better, stronger, more just, and more capable. You have become worthy of the gift of self-governance. Use it wisely. The assembly erupted in applause that lasted for 10 minutes. When it finally died down, Ambassador HFY, now elderly, but still serving as a voice for galactic cooperation, stood to speak. 50 years ago, I sent a message into the void, calling for help. I thought I was asking for rescue. Instead, I was asking for transformation. Humanity did not save us from the Devourers, saved us from ourselves. And in doing so, they proved that sometimes conquest is the highest form of compassion. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. But perhaps the best way to honor that debt is to prove ourselves worthy of the trust they have placed in us. As the Assembly continued its session, working on legislation that would affect trillions of beings across thousands of worlds, a single thought echoed through every mind present. One message had been all it took. One desperate plea for help that had changed the fate of an entire galaxy. The Deathworlders had come back to finish the fight. But the fight they finished was not the one anyone expected. They had not come to destroy their enemies. They had come to transform them into something better. And in the end, that had proven to be the most human victory of all. 6 months after the final battle, the galaxy had learned to live under human rule. Commander Wu Jin stood in the command center of the orbital station above Nexus Prime, watching as construction crews rebuilt the former hegemony capital world. The planet that had once housed trillions of beings was now a monument to human efficiency. "We're receiving daily reports from all sector governors," reported Lieutenant Biorum. "The integration process is proceeding ahead of schedule." Tiny resistance movements? 3 minor uprisings in the Outer Rim. They were suppressed within hours. The rebels are now working in the reconstruction projects. Wu Jin nodded. The human approach to rebellion was simple and effective. Rather than executing rebels, they put them to work rebuilding the worlds they had tried to destroy. It was more efficient than prison and more merciful than execution. What about the ambassador program? 47 species have appointed human-approved representatives. The remaining 12 are still negotiating terms. Give them another week. After that, we'll appoint representatives for them. The door opened, and Admiral Kung Ho entered. He looked tired but satisfied. The past 6 months had been busy ones for the human administration. Status report, Commander. The galaxy is stabilizing, sir. Trade routes are secure. Pirates have been eliminated, and the refugee crisis is under control. We've established permanent bases in all major systems. Good. And the survivors? They're adapting. Most of them seem genuinely grateful to be alive. The younger generations are already learning human languages and customs. Kung Ho walked to the main display, which showed a real-time map of the galaxy. Human ships moved along the trade routes like blood cells in a circulatory system, keeping everything functioning smoothly. Sir, if I may ask, what's our long-term plan? We can't garrison every world forever. We won't need to. In 50 years, the galaxy will govern itself according to human principles. In 100 years, they'll wonder why they ever resisted. And if they don't adapt, then we'll find species that will. The galaxy is a large place, Commander. There's room for those who accept human leadership and no room for those who don't. The communication system activated, and Ambassador HFY's image appeared on the screen. She was calling from the diplomatic station in the Vega system, where the new Galactic Council was being formed. Admiral, we've received the final votes on the new constitution. It passed by a margin of 97%. Excellent. And the dissenting votes? 3 species voted against it: the Carathians, the Zephyrians, and the Thalassans. They claim the Constitution gives too much power to the human administration. They're right, it does. Sir, what should we do about them? Nothing? Let them enjoy their principles while they can. They'll change their minds when they see how the other species prosper under human guidance. The transmission ended, and Kung Ho turned back to the display. The new Galactic Constitution was a masterpiece of political engineering. Maintained the illusion of democratic government while ensuring that all real power remained in human hands. Sir, there's something else, Wu Jin said hesitantly. We've been monitoring communications from the deep void. There are signs that other species may be watching us. Other species, extragalactic civilizations. They may have been observing the Devourer crisis and our response to it. Kyung Ho was quiet for a moment. Are they a threat? Unknown, sir. But if they are, we'll be ready for them. Good. Make sure our deep space monitoring networks are expanded. If there are other powers out there, I want to know about them before they know about us. The weeks passed quietly. The galaxy settled into its new routine under human administration. Crime rates dropped to historic lows. Trade flourished. Scientific research accelerated. The refugee crisis was resolved through efficient resettlement programs. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. The younger generation of aliens was growing up in a galaxy where human authority was simply a fact of life. They learned human languages, studied human history, and adopted human values. They didn't remember the old galaxy, the one where dozens of species had competed for power and influence. Ambassador Heywan watched this transformation with mixed feelings. On one hand, the galaxy was more peaceful and prosperous than it had been in centuries. On the other hand, it was losing something essential about itself. You're creating a generation of willing subjects, she told Admiral Kuncho during one of their regular meetings. We're creating a generation of galactic citizens, he replied. Citizens who understand that cooperation is more valuable than conflict, and if they decide they want their independence, then they'll have earned it. But they'll make that decision as rational beings, not as emotional reactionaries. You really believe you can change an entire galaxy? We already have. The question is whether the changes will be permanent. And if they're not, then we'll make them permanent. We didn't come back to play games, Ambassador. We came back to win. As the months turned into years, the galaxy continued to change. Human technology spread to every world, improving living standards and extending lifespans. Human educational systems produced generations of skilled workers and innovative thinkers. Human medical advances eliminated diseases that had plagued alien species for millennia. But the most important change was cultural. The galaxy was learning to think like humans. The old tribal loyalties, the ancient grudges, the petty territorial disputes that had defined galactic politics for millennia were fading away. In their place came a new sense of unity, purpose, and direction. 10 years after the Devourer War, as historians would later call it, Commander Wu Jin received an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Heywan entered his office on Nexus Prime, but she looked different, younger, somehow more confident. Admiral Wu Jin, she said. He had been promoted several times during the Reconstruction period, Ambassador. To what do I owe the pleasure? I wanted to thank you. Wu Jin raised an eyebrow. For what? For proving me wrong? 10 years ago, I thought you were conquering the galaxy out of revenge. I thought you wanted to punish us for the exile. And now I understand. You weren't conquering us. You were saving us from ourselves. She walked to the window, looking out at the bustling city below. Beings from dozens of species worked side by side, building something new and beautiful. The old galaxy was dying long before the Devourers arrived. We were so busy fighting each other that we couldn't see the real threats. We created weapons of mass destruction because we were afraid of each other. We drove away the one species that could have helped us because we were afraid of competition. And now we're becoming something better, something worthy of survival. leaned back in his chair. It wasn't revenge, Ambassador. It was never about revenge. It was about responsibility. I don't understand. The galaxy couldn't govern itself. The hegemony proved that when they created the Devourers. Someone had to take control before you destroyed yourselves completely. So you appointed yourselves as our guardians. You appointed ourselves as your teachers. There's a difference. And when the lessons are complete, then the galaxy will be ready to govern itself according to principles that actually work. Unity instead of division. Cooperation instead of competition. Progress instead of stagnation. Haywan was quiet for a long moment. The children born since the war, they don't remember the old galaxy. To them, human leadership is normal. That's the point. They're growing up in a galaxy where war is unthinkable, where cooperation is natural, where progress is constant. They'll be better leaders than we ever were. Human leaders, galactic leaders who happen to think like humans. There's a difference. And if they rebel against that conditioning, then they'll do it intelligently, logically, with proper planning and consideration for consequences. And if their arguments are sound, we'll listen to them. You'd give up power voluntarily. We transfer responsibility to those capable of handling it. Power isn't something to be hoarded, Ambassador. It's a tool to be used for the greater good. 25 years after the war, the galaxy had become something unprecedented in its history. Crime was virtually non-existent. Wars had become obsolete. Scientific advancement proceeded at a pace that would have been impossible under the old system. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned to see itself as a single entity rather than a collection of competing factions. The old species rivalries still existed, but they expressed themselves through friendly competition rather than destructive conflict. Admiral Kung Ho, now in his 70s, stood before the new Galactic Assembly on the 50th anniversary of humanity's return. Representatives from every species in the galaxy were present, but they no longer sat in species-specific blocks. Instead, they organized themselves by philosophical and political principles. 50 years ago, he began this. Galaxy was tearing itself apart. Species fought species. Worlds destroyed worlds. And in the end, you created weapons designed to commit genocide. The assembly listened in respectful silence. Most of the representatives had been born after the war. To them, these were historical events, not personal memories. The first human strike hit the Devourer mining operation in the Centauri system like a bolt of lightning from clear skies. Captain So-Young watched from the bridge of the UES Vengeance as her fighter squadrons tore through the mechanical defenders, with weapons the galaxy had never seen before. Target destroyed, Captain, reported her tactical officer. The mining platform is completely eliminated. Casualties? None, ma'am. The Devourers never had a chance to adapt. So-Young smiled grimly. The entropy weapons had worked perfectly. They created zones of pure chaos where the laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. The Devourers, being purely logical machines, simply shut down when faced with truly random events. Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the hegemony survivors on Proxima Colony, said Communications Officer Hyen Su. They're requesting immediate assistance. They say a Devourer fleet is approaching their system. Tell them to hold their position. We'll deal with it. Ma'am, shouldn't we send reinforcements? We let the Devourers attack. Then we study how they do it. The communication officer looked confused. Ma'am, there are 3 million civilians on that colony. I'm aware of that, Lieutenant. But we're not here to save civilians. We're here to eliminate a strategic threat. The uncomfortable silence that followed was broken by the arrival of Admiral Kyunjo's image on the main screen. Captain, report. Mining operation destroyed, sir. 0 casualties on our side. The Devourers responded exactly as predicted. Good. And the Proxima situation? Devourer fleet is 6 hours out? I've ordered the colony to maintain position so we can observe their attack patterns. Excellent. We need to understand their methodology before we can counter it effectively. Ambassador? Haywan, who had been standing quietly in the corner of the bridge, finally spoke up. Admiral, you're going to let 3 million people die just to gather intelligence? Kung Ho's expression didn't change. Ambassador, those 3 million people are citizens of the government that created the Devourers to exterminate my species. I have no obligation to protect them. But they're innocent civilians. It had nothing to do with the decision to exile humanity. Neither did the human children who died when your government drove us into the void. But that didn't stop the hegemony from carrying out their plans. HFY's blue skin paled. That was different. We thought we were protecting the galaxy. From what? From the species that's about to save you from your own creation? The ambassador fell silent, unable to find an adequate response. Captain So-Young, you will monitor the Proxima attack and record everything. I want detailed analysis of their ship movements, weapon systems, and tactical decisions. This data will be crucial for the next phase of our operation. Understood, sir. What about the survivors? If there are any, we'll extract them for debriefing. But the colony itself is expendable. 6 hours later, the Devourer fleet arrived. At Proxima Colony, So-Young watched from a safe distance as the mechanical ships moved into attack formation. They were efficient, precise, and completely without mercy. They're starting with the orbital defense platforms, reported the tactical officer. Standard suppression pattern. They're following the same sequence we observed at Kepler Station. Cord everything. I want to know how they prioritize targets. Attack unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance of destruction. The Devourers eliminated the military installations first, then the industrial centers, then the population centers. They worked methodically, without waste or unnecessary destruction. Ma'am, we're receiving distress calls from the surface. They're begging for help. Maintain radio silence. We're observers, not participants. Ma'am, the colony's defense force is making a final stand at the main spaceport. They're trying to evacuate the civilians. So-Young watched as the brave defenders fought against impossible odds. They were aliens, members of species that had voted to exile humanity, but they were still fighting to protect their families. Ma'am, should we intervene? No, let them die. The battle lasted for hours. When it was over, Proxima Colony was a smoking ruin. The Devourers had taken everything of value and left nothing but ash and rubble behind. Analysis complete, Captain, reported the science officer. The Devourers followed predictable patterns throughout the engagement. They're efficient, but not creative. They have several exploitable weaknesses. Good. Transmit the data to Admiral Kung Ho. He'll want to review it before the next phase. As the human ships prepared to leave the system, HFY approached So-Young. Captain, I need to ask you something. Go ahead, Ambassador. Are you planning to save the galaxy or conquer it? So-Young was quiet for a long moment. Those aren't mutually exclusive options, Ambassador. Sometimes conquest is the only form of salvation available. What do you mean? The galaxy has proven it can't govern itself. The hegemony created weapons of mass destruction to commit genocide. The member species stood by and watched as an entire race was driven into exile. The current crisis is just the inevitable result of a system that was broken from the beginning. So you're going to replace it? We're going to fix it. Permanently. Die. Force, by whatever means necessary. The ambassador looked out at the ruins of Proxima Colony, and if the galaxy resists, then we'll remind them what happened to the last government that tried to eliminate humanity. The Devourers were created to destroy us. Instead, they destroyed the hegemony. Now we're going to destroy the Devourers. And when we're done, the galaxy will understand that there's only one species capable of maintaining order. You're talking about empire. I'm talking about survival. The galaxy has proven it can't handle democracy. It can't handle freedom. Can't handle the responsibility of governing itself, so we'll take that responsibility away from them. And if they refuse to accept human rule? So-Young smiled, but it was not a kind expression. Ambassador, the Devourers were the galaxy's attempt to create the perfect weapon against humanity. They failed. Now the galaxy is going to learn what the perfect weapon actually looks like, which is humans who are no longer constrained by mercy. The transmission from Admiral Kung Ho interrupted their conversation. All units, this is Fleet Command. Phase 2 is now active. Begin targeting Devourer production facilities. And remember, we're not here to save the galaxy. We're here to inherit it. As the human fleet moved toward their next target, Haywen realized that the distress message she had sent 3 days ago had not been a call for rescue. It had been an invitation for conquest, and humanity had accepted. The human war fleet gathered at the edge of the Vega system, their ships forming a deadly constellation against the backdrop of stars. Admiral Kun Cho stood in the command center of the UES Retribution, studying the holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. "Intelligence report," he ordered. Commander Sunya stepped forward, her datapad glowing with fresh information. "Sir, our deep reconnaissance teams have confirmed Ambassador Haywen's account. The Devourers have established major production facilities in 17 systems. They're manufacturing new units at an exponential rate." "How exponential?" "Each facility can produce approximately 10,000 units per day. They're building more facilities as they acquire new resources." Kunho absorbed this information without changing expression. Round him, his senior staff waited for orders. These were the men and women who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. What about their technology level? That's where it gets interesting, sir. They started as simple mining machines, but they've been upgrading themselves. With every species they encounter, they now have access to hegemony military technology, Valerian shield systems, and Krathari energy weapons. And their tactical doctrine? Pure efficiency. They identify the most effective method of planetary conquest and apply it without deviation. No creativity, no adaptation beyond their programmed parameters. Captain Yunji, commander of the Stealth Division, raised her hand. "Sir, my teams have been observing their attack patterns. They're predictable. I always target military installations first, then industrial centers, then population centers. They follow the same sequence every time." "Good. That gives us an advantage." "Sir, if I may," interjected Captain Tammin, recently returned from a scouting mission. "We've discovered something else. The Devourers aren't just copying existing technology. They're improving it. But only in specific ways." "Explain." "They make things more efficient, more durable, more powerful. But they don't make them more creative or adaptable. They're still fundamentally limited by their original programming." Kyung-ho nodded slowly. "They're the perfect weapon for fighting a conventional war." "But humans have never fought conventional wars." "Exactly, sir. They're designed to counter. The hegemony's military doctrine, organized battle lines, predictable tactics, rules of engagement. They have no experience dealing with chaos." The Admiral turned to the tactical display and began inputting commands. The hologram changed, showing potential target systems and attack vectors. "Here's what we're going to do. We're not going to fight them the way they expect. We're not going to engage their main forces or attack their strongholds. We're going to make them come to us, sir. They're machines. They respond to threats based on priority algorithms. We're going to give them so many threats that their system overloads." He pointed to several systems on the display. "I want hit. And run attacks on their supply lines. Make them think we're targeting their resource-gathering operations. Meanwhile, our stealth teams will be placing dimensional bombs in their production facilities." "Dimensional bombs, sir? Weapons that create localized space-time distortions? They can't adapt to something that changes the fundamental laws of physics around them." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dimensional bombs were humanity's most closely guarded secret, weapons developed during the long years of exile. They were devices that could literally tear holes in reality itself. "Sir, the energy requirements for those weapons would drain our entire fleet," warned Chief Engineer Young-ho. "That's why we're only using them on critical targets, and why we need to make sure every shot counts." Sunya looked up from her datapad. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from our agents in the remaining hegemony territories. Survivors are forming resistance groups. They're asking for our help." "Are they now?"
"Sir?"
"They claim they're willing to submit to human authority if we'll help them fight the Devourers." Kung-ho laughed, but it was not a pleasant sound. 50 years too late for that. "But we can use them, sir. Tell them we'll consider their request. But first, they need to prove their loyalty. I want detailed intelligence on Devourer positions, supply routes, and weaknesses. I want them to serve as spotters for our attacks, And if they refuse, then they can face the Devourers alone. We're not here to save them. We're here to eliminate a threat to human security. The briefing continued for another hour as the Admiral outlined his strategy. It was complex, ruthless, and completely unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of massive fleet engagements, there would be precision strikes. Instead of holding territory, they would deny it to the enemy. Instead of fighting to save the galaxy, they would fight to reshape it. One more thing, Kung Ho said, as the meeting concluded. I want psychological warfare units deployed to every surviving hegemony world. Let them know that humanity has returned. Let them know that we remember what they did to us. Sir, isn't that counterproductive if we want their cooperation? I don't want their cooperation. I want their submission. There's a difference. As the senior staff dispersed to carry out their orders, Kung Ho remained alone with the tactical display. He stared at the representation of the galaxy, this collection of worlds that had once cast humanity out into the void. Commander Wu Jin entered the command center, carrying a message tablet. Sir, we've received confirmation from the first wave of attack teams are in position and ready to begin operations. Excellent. And the dimensional bombs. Loaded and armed, sir. The reality anchors are functioning normally. We're ready to begin the first phase. Kyung Ho nodded. Then let's begin. Send the signal to all units. Operation Homecoming is now active. Across the galaxy, human ships began to move. They were no longer the desperate refugees who had fled into exile 50 years ago. They were predators returning to reclaim their hunting ground. The Devourers had been created to hunt humans. Now, they would learn what it meant to be hunted by humans, and the galaxy would learn that exile had not made humanity weaker. It had made them patient and patience. Combined with superior technology and absolute ruthlessness, was about to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The human fleet moved through space like a pack of hunting wolves. Captain Donghan stood on the bridge of the U.S. Determination, watching the sensor displays as they approached the Kepler station. What they found there would change everything, sir. We're getting detailed scans of the system now, reported Sensor Officer Mi Young. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as she read the data. The station is heavily damaged. Life support is failing in most sections, Dong Hyan studied the tactical display. The Kepler station had once been a thriving research outpost, home to scientists from dozens of species. Now it looked like a broken toy floating in the void. Any signs of the attackers? Negative, sir, but we're detecting strange energy signatures in the asteroid belt. Don't match anything in our databases. Show me. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a three-dimensional image of the asteroid belt. At first glance, it looked normal, but as Dong Hyan watched, he noticed something wrong. The asteroids were moving in patterns that made no sense. Those aren't asteroids, he said quietly. No, sir, they're not. Our analysis suggests there's some kind of artificial constructs. They appear to be mining the belt for raw materials. Dong Hyan felt a chill run down his spine. These had to be the Devourers that Ambassador Hei-Wan had warned them about, but they were nothing like what he had expected. Sir, we're receiving a weak signal from the station. It's Ambassador Hei-Wan. She's alive, but barely. Put her through. The voice that came through the speakers was weak and filled with pain. Human ship. This is Ambassador Hei-Wan. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure the message got through. We're here, Ambassador. What's your status? Life support is failing. Most of the station crew is dead. The Devourers hit us 3 days ago. They took everything they could use and left us to die. Dong Hyan made a quick decision. Prepare a boarding party. Full combat gear. We're going to extract the ambassador. Sir, should we call for backup? No, we handle this ourselves. 20 minutes later, Marine Sergeant Jae Huyan was leading a team of 8 soldiers through the twisted corridors of the Kepler station. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning electronics. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls. This place is a tomb, muttered Corporal Yujin as they passed the bodies of station personnel. The aliens had died quickly, but not easily. They found Ambassador Hei-Wan in the station's emergency shelter. She was a Valerian, a species known for their blue-scaled skin and large, intelligent eyes. Now she looked old and fragile, her scales pale from stress and malnutrition. "You came," she whispered as the Marines entered the shelter. "After everything we did to you, you actually came." Jaheen knelt beside her, his armored suit making him look like a mechanical giant. "We keep our promises, Ambassador, even when others don't. The Devourers, they're not what we thought they were. They're not just another hostile species. They're something else entirely." "What do you mean?" A1 struggled to sit up. "They learn. Every world they attack, every species they encounter, they absorb their knowledge and technology. They started as simple mining machines, but now they're something far more dangerous." "Who created them?" "We did. The hegemony. They were supposed to be the final solution to the human problem. A weapon that could hunt down your colonies and destroy them without risking our own people." Jahayan felt his blood turn to ice. "You created them to kill us." "Yes, but something went wrong. They evolved beyond their original programming. Instead of just targeting humans, they began to see all organic life as a threat to be eliminated." The Marine sergeant was quiet for a long moment. Round them, the station groaned and shuddered as its damaged structure continued to deteriorate. "How many worlds have they taken?" "Dozens. Maybe more. The hegemony tried to fight them with conventional weapons, but they just absorbed the technology and turned it against us. Every battle made them stronger. And the hegemony government? Gone. Nexus Prime fell last month. The other core worlds are under siege. The few survivors are scattered across the outer rim, begging for help from anyone who will listen." Jahen helped her to her feet. "That's why you sent the message. I had to. You were the only ones who might be able to stop them." "The only ones who fight wars the way they do? What do you mean?" "Total war. No rules. No mercy. No surrender. The Devourers don't understand concepts like honor or fair play. They only understand complete victory or complete defeat." As they made their way back to the shuttle, Hayone continued to talk. "There's something else you need to know. The Devourers aren't just taking resources, they're taking knowledge. Every species they encounter, they study and catalog. They're building a database of galactic civilization. For what purpose? To perfect their hunting techniques. They're not just trying to destroy organic life, they're trying to understand it well enough to eliminate it completely." Back on the Determination, Dong Hain listened to the ambassador's full report with growing anger. The hegemony had created these monsters specifically to hunt down and kill humans. Now that their weapon had turned against them, they expected humanity to clean up their mess. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Kyung-ho," reported. "Communications Officer Tae-1, put him through." The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. "Captain, what's your status?" "We've recovered Ambassador Hae-1, sir. She's provided us with detailed intelligence on the Devourers. You're not going to like what we've learned." "I'm listening." Dong Hien quickly summarized the ambassador's revelations. As he spoke, he watched the Admiral's expression grow darker. "So, they created these things to exterminate us, and now they want us to destroy them." "That's correct, sir." "And the hegemony government is completely destroyed, according to the ambassador?" "Yes, there's no central authority left. Just scattered survivors begging for help." Kyung-ho was quiet for a long moment. "Very well. Proceed to Rendezvous Point Alpha. We'll decide our next move there." As the transmission ended, Dong Haeon looked out at the stars. The galaxy had tried to create the perfect weapon to destroy humanity. Instead, it created something that would destroy them all. Now it was up to humans to decide whether the galaxy was worth saving, or whether it was time to let the Devourers finish what the hegemony had started. The Deep Space Monitoring Station buzzed with quiet activity as the night shift worked through their routine checks. Commander Woojin sat at his command chair, watching the endless stream of data flow across the screens. For 50 years, humanity had been listening to the galaxy they once called home. They monitored every transmission, every signal, every whisper that came from beyond the rim. Tonight felt different. Lieutenant Borum looked up from her console, her face pale in the blue light of the displays. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission." On the old diplomatic frequency, It's encrypted with human protocols. Wu Jin straightened in his chair. The diplomatic frequency had been dead for decades. No one should have been able to access it, let alone know the encryption codes. Put it through. The speakers crackled to life, and a familiar voice filled the command center. It was weak, tired, but unmistakably real. Humanity, if you are still out there, we need you. The hegemony has fallen. They are coming for everyone now. This is Ambassador Haywan of the Kepler station. Please, if you can hear this, we need help. The Devourers have taken everything. Nexus Prime is gone. The outer colonies are burning. We were wrong about you. We were wrong about everything. The transmission ended, leaving only static in its wake. Wu Jin stared at the communication panel, his mind racing. Ambassador Haywan had been the only alien who spoke for humanity during the Great Exile. She had stood before the Galactic Council and argued that banishing humans was a mistake. She had been ignored, voted down, and ultimately forced to watch. As her human friends were driven from civilized space, verified the source, Wu Jin ordered. Bioram's fingers flew over her controls. The quantum signature matches our records, sir. It's definitely from Kepler Station in the Outer Rim. The encryption is authentic, but the signal is weak. They're barely maintaining power. How long since transmission? 3 hours, 14 minutes? Wu Jin stood and walked to the main display screen. It showed a map of the galaxy as it had been 50 years ago, with human colonies marked in blue. All of those colonies were gone now, their populations evacuated to the deep void beyond the galactic rim. The humans had built new homes on rogue planets, asteroid colonies, and space stations that drifted in the darkness between stars, sir. There's more, Bjorn said. We're detecting massive energy signatures from the old hegemony core worlds. It looks like planetary bombardment, but on a scale we've never seen before. The door to the command center opened, and Admiral Kung Ho entered. He was an older man, his face marked by years of hard decisions and harder battles. He had been a captain during the exile, one of the officers who had led the evacuation fleets into the unknown. I heard the transmission, he said without preamble. What's our current fleet status? 12 dreadnoughts, 47 destroyers, and 200. Fighter squadrons are on standby, Wu Jin replied. The deep strike teams are ready for immediate deployment. Kung Ho nodded slowly. And the new weapons? All systems are operational, sir. The entropy bombs are loaded and ready. The reality anchors are charged. The dimensional cascade generators are online. The Admiral walked to the tactical display and studied the star charts. The galaxy looked peaceful from this distance, but the energy readings told a different story. Something was tearing through the old hegemony worlds like a plague. What do we know about these Devourers? He asked. Intelligence Officer Sunya stepped forward. She was young, but her eyes held the sharp focus of someone who had spent years studying their former enemies. Based on preliminary analysis of the signal, they appear to be some kind of self-replicating machine intelligence. They consume planetary resources and convert them into more of themselves. The energy signatures suggest they're using technologies we've never seen before. How long have they been active? Unknown, sir, but based on the destruction patterns, they've been systematically destroying hegemony worlds for at least 6 months, maybe longer. Kyung-ho was quiet for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew continued their work, but everyone was listening. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. The moment when humanity would decide whether to return to the galaxy that had cast them out. Sir, if I may, Wu Jin said. We've been monitoring hegemony communications for years. They've been dealing with resource shortages, political instability, and refugee crises. Even before these Devourers showed up, their government was falling apart. Good, Kung Ho said simply. That makes our job easier. The Admiral turned to face the entire bridge crew. 50 years ago, the Galactic Council decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist alongside civilized species. They called us warmongers, Deathworlders, and worse. They said we were a threat to galactic peace. He paused, his gaze moving from face to face. They were right, sir, Borum asked. We are dangerous. We are warmongers. We do come from a death world that would kill any other species just by existing there. But they made one crucial mistake. They thought exile would make us weaker. Kung Ho walked to the main display and touched the screen. The image changed, showing the human colonies that now existed in the void. Massive space stations, fortress worlds, and shipyards that stretched for thousands of kilometers. This was what 50 years of exile had built. They sent us into the darkness thinking we would die, he continued. Instead, we thrived. We adapted. We evolved. We became something they never imagined we could become. He turned back to the crew. The galaxy is calling for help, not because they want us back, but because they're desperate. They've created something they can't control, and now they need the one species they were afraid of to clean up their mess. Are we going to help them, sir? Sunya asked. Kung Ho smiled, but it was not a kind expression. Oh yes, we're going to help them. We're going to help them understand what happens when you try to exile apex predators. We're going to help them learn that the galaxy was never theirs to control. He moved to the communication console and opened a channel to the entire human fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Kung Ho. We have received a distress call from the galaxy. It's time to go home. The response was immediate. Across the void, human ships began to power up their engines. Weapons systems came online, crews prepared for deployment. After 50 years of waiting, humanity was ready to return. Plot a course for the Kepler station, Kung Ho ordered. Full fleet deployment. And send a message to our deep cover agents in the surviving hegemony worlds. Tell them the exile is over. As the human fleet began to move toward the Galactic, Rim Wujin looked at the star charts one more time. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. They thought they were calling for rescue. Instead, they had just invited the wolves back into the fold. The age of human dominance was about to begin. The final battle was not what anyone expected. Commander Wujin stood on the observation deck of the UES Retribution, watching as the human fleet surrounded the last Devourer stronghold. The massive construct hung in space like a mechanical moon, its surface covered with weapons that could destroy entire worlds. Sir, the Devourer mothership is powering up its main weapon, reported Tactical Officer Heiansu. Our sensors indicate it's some kind of reality destroyer. If it fires, it could tear a hole in space-time itself. Let it, Wujin replied calmly. We've been expecting this. Around him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. These weren't the desperate refugees who had fled the galaxy 50 years ago. These were the children of exile, forged in the darkness between stars. Trained to fight wars that would drive other species insane. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Devourer collective consciousness. Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was a harmony of every species the Devourers had consumed. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Humans, you have exceeded all projections. Your species' capacity for destruction is remarkable. We had good teachers, Wujin replied. Your creators, for instance. The hegemony created us as the final solution to the human problem. We were designed to be everything you were not. Logical, efficient, predictable. And yet here you are, running from the very species you were meant to destroy. We are not running. You're making a final calculation. This weapon will destroy everything within 1,000 light years. You cannot survive. Wujin smiled. You're right. Can't survive it. That's why we're not planning to be here when it fires. The human ships began to move in perfect formation. They weren't retreating. They were positioning themselves in a pattern that looked almost like a ritual circle. Sir, the dimensional cascade. Generators are online, reported Chief Engineer Young Ho. All ships are reporting ready. What are you doing? The Devourer voice asked, and for the first time it sounded uncertain. Something you can't understand, Wujin replied. We're about to do something completely illogical. The human fleet began to glow with strange energy. At the center of their formation, space itself started to bend and twist. Reality became fluid, malleable, responsive to human will. Possible, the Devourers whispered. You cannot weaponize a dimensional cascade. The energy requirements would destroy your entire fleet. You're right again, Wujin said, as the first ships began to disappear into the growing vortex. It will destroy our fleet. but it will also destroy you. You would sacrifice yourselves to defeat us. We would sacrifice anything to win. That's what you never understood about humans. We don't fight to survive. We fight to win. The dimensional cascade grew larger, its gravitational pull beginning to affect the Devourer mothership. The massive construct tried to break free, but it was too late. The artificial black hole was already pulling it apart. This is madness. The Devourers screamed as their ship began to stretch and distort. You are destroying yourselves for nothing. For nothing, Wujin replied as the bridge around him began to dissolve. For dominance. The last thing the Devourers saw was Admiral Kunho's face on their screens. He was standing on the bridge of his flagship as it fell into the vortex, his expression calm and satisfied. "Tell me, machines," he said. "In all your calculations, did you ever consider that humans might be willing to die to prove a point?" Mothership screamed as it was torn apart by forces beyond its understanding. The Devourer consciousness, that digital amalgamation of 1,000 conquered species, finally understood what it had been fighting. Humans weren't just another species to be cataloged and eliminated. They were something else entirely. Creatures who would burn down the universe rather than accept defeat. But the Devourers had made one crucial error in their calculations. They had assumed that the human fleet was actually being destroyed by the dimensional cascade. In reality, the ships were being translated into a parallel dimension, where they would wait until the battle was over. 3 days later, Admiral Kuncho stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as it materialized back into normal space. Around him, the rest of the human fleet was doing the same. The Devourer stronghold was gone, leaving only empty space and scattered debris. "Casualty report," he ordered. "0 casualties, sir. All ships accounted for." The dimensional translation worked perfectly, and the Devourers completely eliminated, sir. "Our sensors detect no trace of their technology anywhere in the galaxy." Kyung-ho nodded with satisfaction. "Excellent. Begin Phase 3. It's time to make our presence known to the survivors." Within hours, every communication system in the galaxy was broadcasting the same message. It was simple, direct, and absolutely terrifying. The Devourer threat has been eliminated. The galaxy is now under human protection. All surviving governments will submit to human authority within 72 hours. Resistance is futile. Response was immediate and predictable. Some worlds submitted immediately, grateful to be alive. Others tried to organize resistance movements. Few attempted to negotiate for independence. None of it mattered. The humans had returned not as liberators, but as conquerors. And they had the power to enforce their will. Ambassador Haewon sat in her new office aboard the human orbital station above her homeworld. She had been appointed as the official liaison between humanity and the surviving species, a position that carried all the responsibility and none of the authority. "You used us," she said to Admiral Kung-ho during their first official meeting. "The distress call, the request for help, it was all just an excuse. No, Ambassador, you used yourselves. You created the Devourers to destroy us. When they turned on you, you called for help. You simply responded in the way that best served our interests. And now you rule the galaxy. Now we protect the galaxy from itself, if necessary. What about freedom? What about self-determination? What about survival? Your freedom created weapons of mass destruction. Your self-determination led to genocide. The galaxy has proven it can't handle democracy." Haewon looked out at the stars, where human ships now patrolled every major trade route. "So this is how it ends. It's not with war, but with conquest." "This is how it begins," Kung-ho corrected. "The galaxy has spent millennia proving it can't govern itself. Now, it will have the chance to learn from a species that can, and if we refuse to learn, then you'll share the fate of the Devourers." "We didn't spend 50 years in exile to come back and play by your rules, Ambassador. We came back to make our own." The age of human dominance had begun, and it would last for as long as humanity chose to maintain it, which, given their track record, would be a very long time indeed.